The starship Void Strider drifted silently in the black expanse of space, its engines humming softly. Inside, a group of alien soldiers stood around a circular chamber, their many eyes fixed on the lone human strapped to the center platform. His name was John, a simple explorer captured during a deep space mission. The aliens, tall and insect-like with shimmering blue exoskeletons, spoke in clicking tones. Their leader, Commander Vex, stepped forward. "This human will be the sacrifice," he declared. "The ancient beast beneath this moon demands flesh. His death will ensure our safe passage." John struggled against his restraints, his heart pounding. He had heard whispers of the creature, a monstrous entity buried beneath the icy crust of this desolate moon. The aliens believed feeding it would appease its hunger. But John knew one thing they didn't: humans didn't die easily. With a hiss, the floor beneath him slid open. Cold air rushed up as he was dropped into the darkness. The last thing he saw was the aliens' satisfied faces before the pit swallowed him whole. Down, down he fell, into the abyss. Then, impact. Pain shot through his body, but he was alive. Around him, the cavern pulsed with eerie light. Strange veins of bioluminescent fungus covered the walls, casting ghostly shadows. And then, he felt it. A presence. Something ancient. Something hungry. A low growl echoed through the cavern. Massive claws scraped against stone. John turned slowly, and there it was. The beast was colossal, a nightmare of fangs and armored flesh. Its many eyes locked onto him. But instead of attacking, it hesitated. John, bloodied but unbroken, met its gaze. And in that moment, something passed between them. Not fear. Not rage. Understanding. The beast tilted its head. John reached out a trembling hand. And the monster bowed. Above, the aliens waited, confident in their victory. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The Void Strider's crew celebrated in their cold, metallic halls. Commander Vex raised a vial of glowing liquid, his mandibles clicking in triumph. The beast is fed. The path is clear. We move forward at dawn. The aliens cheered, their long limbs clattering in approval. None of them noticed the faint tremors beneath their feet. Deep below, John stood before the monster, his breath ragged but his will unbroken. The creature, a towering mass of muscle, fangs, and jagged plates, studied him with unsettling intelligence. Its breath was hot, reeking of old blood, yet it did not strike. John, still bleeding from the fall, did the only thing he could think of. He spoke. "I'm not your enemy," he said, voice rough but steady. The beast tilted its head, a low rumble vibrating in its throat. Then, to John's shock, it responded. Not in words, but in images, flashes of memory that burned into his mind. He saw the aliens, not as explorers, but as invaders. He saw this creature, once a guardian, betrayed and imprisoned beneath the moon. And he saw himself, not as prey, but as something else. A key. The ground trembled again, harder this time. Dust rained from the cavern's ceiling. The beast snarled, its many eyes flicking upward. It knew. The aliens were still here. Still a threat. John clenched his fists. "You want revenge?" The beast's growl deepened. It wanted more than revenge. It wanted freedom. And John? He wanted survival. A sharp pain shot through his ribs as he stood, but he ignored it. "Then we help each other." He reached out, pressing his palm against the creature's armored snout. A pulse of energy surged between them, sealing the pact. Above, the aliens finally noticed the shaking. The Void Strider's alarms blared. "Commander," one soldier hissed. "The sensors, something is moving beneath us." Vex's eyes narrowed. Impossible. The sacrifice was made. The beast should be a deafening roar split the air. The ship's hull groaned as something massive slammed into it from below. Lights flickered. Panic erupted. Then, silence. The aliens froze, their weapons raised. The loading bay doors trembled. And then, they burst open. Standing in the wreckage was John, alive, bleeding, but smiling. Behind him, the beast's eyes burned like dying stars. Chaos erupted aboard the Void Strider. Alien soldiers scrambled, their weapons humming to life as the beast tore through the loading bay like paper. John moved with it, not as a prisoner, not as prey, but as something new. Something dangerous. Commander Vex's voice crackled over the ship's comms. Contain them. Kill the human. Plasma bolts seared through the air. John ducked behind a shattered console as the beast roared, its armored hide deflecting the blasts. The creature moved with terrifying speed, claws ripping through metal and alien flesh alike. But it wasn't just mindless destruction, it was strategic. It was protecting him. John's mind burned with the images the beast had shared. This ship wasn't just passing through. It was a scout. More would come. More would die. Unless he stopped them. A soldier lunged at him, serrated limbs slashing. John grabbed a fallen weapon, a jagged alien blade, and drove it upward. The alien gurgled, collapsing. He didn't hesitate. He couldn't afford to. The beast slammed into a group of reinforcements, its tail whipping out to crush them against the walls. But more kept coming. Too many. John's eyes locked onto the ship's control nexus, the heart of its systems. If he could reach it. Hey, he shouted over the carnage. The beast turned, its massive head tilting. John pointed. There. We need to get there. The creature understood. In one fluid motion, it snatched him up in its claws, not to harm him, but to carry him. Then it charged. Alarms blared as they tore through corridors, the beast shrugging off gunfire like rain. The aliens' formation broke, their discipline shattered by sheer terror. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Humans were weak. Humans were prey. But this human? This human had brought the monster home. The control nexus doors loomed ahead, sealed. The beast didn't slow. It crashed through, sending shrapnel flying. Inside, Commander Vex stood waiting, his personal guard aiming heavy cannons. Pathetic creature, Vex hissed. You were nothing but bait. John grinned, blood dripping from his lip. Yeah. Bait for you. The beast roared, and the real fight began. The control nexus trembled as the beast planted itself between John and the alien weapons. Plasma bolts scorched its hide, leaving blackened welts that hissed with heat. It snarled but held its ground, a living shield. John's fingers flew over the alien console, its glowing symbols making strange sense in his mind. The beast's shared memories had left more than just images, they'd left understanding. The ship's systems responded to his touch like he'd used them for years. Commander Vex's mandibles twitched in fury. Impossible. That technology is not for human filth. He raised his own weapon, a curved blade crackling with energy. Destroy them both. The beast moved first. It lunged, claws ripping through two guards before they could fire. John ducked as a plasma shot grazed his shoulder, the pain white-hot. He didn't stop. The console flashed warnings, he was locking out the bridge controls. Vex saw it. With a shriek, he leapt, his blade aimed for John's throat. The beast twisted, taking the slash across its flank. Black fluid splattered the floor. It roared, swiping at Vex, but the commander rolled aside, unnaturally fast. You think you've won? Vex spat. This ship is rigged to detonate the moment I fall. My people will burn this moon to cinders from orbit. John's hands froze over the console. A bluff? He searched the beast's eyes, and saw truth. The creature's rage faltered. It knew. Vex laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Submit, human. Die with dignity. John looked at the beast. At its wounds. At the ship around them, a weapon pointed at a world. Then he smiled. You're right, he said. This ship shouldn't fall. His fist slammed the final command. The Void Strider's engines screamed to life, not for escape. For impact. The ship lurched, throwing Vex to his knees. What have you done? John grabbed the beast's claw as the deck tilted beneath them. We're taking it down, into the pit. Alarms wailed. The hull groaned. And as the Void Strider began its death plunge toward the caverns below, the beast curled around John, shielding him one last time. Vex screams followed them into the dark. The world came back in flashes of pain and fire. John gasped awake, his body screaming in protest. The beast's armored bulk had shielded him from the worst of the crash, but everything hurt. Smoke choked the air, mixing with the acrid stench of burning alien metal. The Void Strider was dead, twisted into a tomb of broken corridors and sparking wreckage. He pushed himself up, his hands slipping in something wet. Blood. Not his. The beast lay motionless beside him, its massive side rising and falling in shallow breaths. One of its eyes was gone, seared shut by plasma fire. Deep gashes marked where Vex's blade had found its mark. But it was alive. Hey, John croaked, pressing a hand to its snout. We made it. The creature rumbled weakly in response. A sound cut through the silence, a metallic click. John turned slowly. 3 alien survivors stood in the ruined doorway, their weapons raised. Not soldiers. Technicians. Their carapaces were cracked, their limbs trembling, but their guns were steady. John had no strength left to fight. The beast couldn't protect him now. Then. A tremor. Dust rained from the ceiling. The aliens hesitated, their compound eyes darting upward. Another tremor. Stronger. The beast's remaining eye snapped open. It tried to rise, a warning growl building in its throat. The ground heaved. The ceiling split apart as something enormous tore through it, not the beast. Something older. A tendril, thick as a starship and glistening with wet, black scales, slammed down, crushing 2 aliens instantly. The third screamed as a second tendril wrapped around it, dragging it screaming into the shadows above. John scrambled back as the wreckage around them groaned. The beast managed to stand, baring its fangs at the thing in the darkness. It wasn't alone. The true guardian of this moon was awake. And it was hungry. The cavern trembled as the thing pulled itself free from the rock above. John's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't just a monster, it was a colossus, a nightmare of coiled muscle and jagged bone plates, its body stretching further than the wrecked ship they stood on. Dozens of black, pupilless eyes blinked open across its bulk, fixing on them with ancient malice. The wounded beast at John's side snarled, but its defiance was weak. This was no equal fight. This was prey staring into the jaws of a predator older than civilizations. The colossus spoke. Not in words. Not in images. In pressure. A force slammed into John's mind, crushing his thoughts into a single, suffocating truth. You do not belong here. His knees buckled. Blood trickled from his nose. Beside him, the beast whimpered, its claws digging into the ground just to stay upright. The colossus loomed closer, its tendrils slithering through the ruins, peeling back metal like fruit skin. It had been sleeping. Waiting. And now, it had been disturbed. John forced his head up. He couldn't fight. Couldn't run. But he could understand. The beast beside him had shown him that much. Gritting his teeth, he reached out, not with his hands, but with his mind. The same way the Colossus was pressing into his. "We didn't wake you," he thought, pushing the words into the crushing dark. They did. Flashes of memory, the aliens. Their ships. Their sacrifices. Their fear. The pressure lessened. Just slightly. The Colossus paused. The beast at John's side let out a low, pained whine. And then. A new voice. Not John's. Not the Colossus. The moon itself. A pulse of energy rippled through the cavern, shaking loose stones from the ceiling. The Colossus recoiled, its many eyes widening. Something was coming. Something worse. The ground split open. Not in cracks. Not in tremors. In a chasm of glowing, pulsing veins, as if the moon itself had peeled back its skin. John stumbled back as the Colossus let out a sound that wasn't a roar, it was a warning. The beast beside him pressed close, its remaining eye wide with something John had never seen in it before. Fear. Then. The veins moved. Not like tendrils. Like roots. They surged upward, coiling around the Colossus with terrifying speed. The ancient monster thrashed, its massive form dwarfed by the sheer scale of what was rising from below. The moon wasn't a moon. It was a cage. And whatever was inside? It was awake now. The roots tightened. The Colossus screamed, a sound that shook the caverns, that made John's bones vibrate. Then, with a final, sickening crunch, the roots pulled. The Colossus was dragged down into the abyss. Silence. John's ears rang. His hands shook. The beast beside him let out a low, uncertain growl. Then. A whisper. Not in his mind. Not in the air. In his blood. "You are not like them." John froze. The voice wasn't hostile. It was curious. The roots shifted. Not attacking. Just watching. The beast tensed, but John reached out, pressing a hand to its side. "Wait." He took a step forward. The roots parted. And in the darkness below, something stirred. Not a monster. Not a god. Something older. John didn't understand. But he didn't need to. The voice came again, softer this time. "Go." The roots retreated. The chasm sealed. The moon was silent once more. John exhaled. The beast nudged him gently, as if asking, "What now?" He looked at the wreckage of the Void Strider. At the dead aliens. At the sky beyond the shattered ceiling. Then he smiled. "Now," he said, "we make sure no one else comes here." The beast rumbled in agreement. Together, they walked into the light.